after Yaakov meets Esav, and they finally come to terms that they're going to live together, there's many midrashim. Was Yaakov hugged by Esav or bit by Esav? So we know. However, after they had their meeting, Esav and Yaakov decide that they're going to go back home. But when they go back home, Esav's intention was that they should walk together. Yaakov says no. Yaakov had a reason why not, because as much as possible, when we can choose to not be in bad company, we should choose not to be. And he didn't want his wives and children to get influenced by Esav and his entourage, the army of people that he came with. So he gave an excuse that I'm traveling slower than you, I don't want to hold you down and slow you down. I'm with the kids, I'm with the wives, I'm with all of the animals, so go along. Unfortunately, Yaakov didn't go straight home. It took another 2 years till he actually got home. So again, he should have been home at 97, but he, again, at his level, we're not here to judge him, but he procrastinated by 2 years. And that actually led to not the best of things for him. It was during that time that the story of Dinah took place. According to some commentaries, that was the time that Yosef's unfortunate kidnapping and sale took place. Some say no, it actually happened later. But regardless, it was not the best of time for Yaakov. According to all opinions, during these 2 years is the time where Rachel passed away. So it was a very, very hard time for Yaakov Avinu these 2 years. Because he procrastinated in going back, he was actually punished later on, that Yosef would be taken away from him for a total of 22 years, because he was away from his family for 22 years. The truth is he was away for 36 years, but the 14 years that he was learning Torah was not taken into consideration. And the truth is the 20 years he was at Lavan should have not been taken into consideration either, because he did so because his parents told him to do so. But since he took those extra 2 years for himself, his parents never told him to spend time coming home. When it's time to come home right away. So all 22 of those years, he now had to be separated from Yosef, unfortunately. Being that was the case, the Torah tells us that Yaakov comes complete to the city, in front of the city of Shechem, and he encamps over there. I'll read to you the verse. The verse is in chapter 33, verse 18. Vayavo Yaakov shalem ir Shechem. Yaakov comes complete to the city of Shechem. Asher beretz Canaan, vivo mipadan Aram. Vayihan et penei ha'ir. And he encamps himself, he sets up camp opposite, right outside of the city. The Midrash tells us a fascinating observation. The Midrash says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Yosef ben Chalifta, that the whole Torah, there is no mention of Abraham observing Shabbat, or of Yitzhak observing Shabbat. And the Midrash says, because Abraham did not observe Shabbat, again, let's take a step back. He was never commanded to. He never did anything wrong. But we don't see that he did observe the Shabbat in the Torah, the Midrash says. And because he did not observe the Shabbat, he therefore was blessed with a blessing that has limitation. The Midrash proves where. The verse says in chapter 13, verse 17, Kum hitalech ba'aretz leorka u'rochba ki lecha eterena. Get up and walk in the land to its length and its breadth. The Torah says, ba'aretz, in the land. The Midrash says that that's a limiting blessing. It's a great blessing. It's a blessing that could encompass the whole world, but it's still limited to the world. If we look at Yaakov, it says over here, Vayichan et penei ha'ir. The Midrash says, what was he doing? He was setting up his Tchum Shabbat. He was calculating how much can he and his family travel within, not really travel, because they were not allowed to travel on Shabbat, but wander and walk around on Shabbat from where they set up camp. Vayichan, from the word of Tchum Shabbat. He set up his boundaries of Shabbat where he's able to wander, where him and his family are able to wander during the Shabbat. And because the Torah alludes to Yaakov keeping Shabbat, he was blessed with a limitless blessing, a universal blessing, as the verse says in chapter 28, verse 14. V'haya zaracha ka'afar haaretz, ufaratzta yama v'kedma v'tzafona v'negba, v'nivrechu becha kol mishpechot ha'adama u'vzarecha. It says that your children will be like the dust of the earth, and to all four directions, to north, south, east, west, to all directions with no limitation. So the Midrash is telling us, the Zera Shimshon is quoting a Midrash that says, Avraham and Yitzchak did not fulfill the Shabbat. However, we see that Yaakov did. And because of that, the first blessings were limited, and Yaakov's blessing was unlimited. Now, based on that, the Zera Shimshon asks the obvious question. How is it that Avraham and Yitzchak didn't keep Shabbat, and Yaakov, their son, comes and keeps Shabbat? Who is he to do something different? That's one question we have to address. You're going to tell me Abraham and Isaac didn't keep Shabbat, and then Yaakov does? Furthermore, don't we know that the Gemara tells us that Avraham Avinu fulfilled every detail in our Torah to the point where he even set up an Eruv Tavshilin, which has to do with Shabbat. Eruv Tavshilin means preparing the food that's going in from Yom Tov, from the holiday, into Shabbat. So how is the Midrash telling me Avraham and Yitzchak didn't keep Shabbat? Yet the Talmud is telling me he kept everything in the Torah, including the very fact of preparing the food that prior to Shabbat, prior to the holiday, going from the holiday into Shabbat. So the Zera Shimshon brings the commentaries which tell us that Avraham and Yitzchak felt that they fell under the category of Ben Noach, Bnei Noach, descendants of Noach, since they were not given the Torah yet. And a Noachide, a Ben Noach, has only 7 laws. And furthermore, the Talmud tells us that a non-Jew who observes the Shabbat is doing something wrong, which even according to the Torah is liable for death. Because since they're not obligated to fulfill it, now they're not even allowed to when it comes to Shabbat. So Avraham and Yitzchak had a dilemma. On one hand, I want to do the will of God and keep Shabbat. On the other hand, how can I? I may not be allowed to. So they made a decision to not observe Shabbat. Can you believe this? So what happened to Yaakov? How could Yaakov keep Shabbat? Or better yet, before we deal with Yaakov, how is it that the Talmud tells us that they kept Eruv Tavshilin? That's a halacha clear with respect to keeping and observing Shabbat. So look how the Zera Shimshon answers. He says, really, Avraham and Yitzchak did not observe Shabbat. They did not refrain from the 39 melachot that we're not allowed to do on Shabbat. But, because they were Gentiles, they were Bnei Noach. But, that still doesn't mean that they were not allowed to honor the Shabbat. A Goy is allowed to honor Shabbat. And the law of Eruv Tavshilin is not a law in observing Shabbat, it's a law in honoring Shabbat. Meaning, it's an honor to Shabbat when Shabbat is preceded by a holiday, that all the food is not eaten on the holiday, that there is some food left for Shabbat. That is the specific example the Talmud used to show that Avraham fulfilled everything. He really, according to this, did not refrain from the 39 melachot on Shabbat, but he still honored the Shabbat. And so did Isaac. So now what's the story with Yaakov? Why is he different? In order to understand the difference between Avraham and Yitzhak and then to Yaakov, we have to understand the battle which took place between Yaakov and the angel. This is a battle which lasted all night. The Torah tells us that Yaakov crossed back over the Yarden by himself. Why? Because he forgot some of his articles over there. And a righteous person, a tzaddik, cherishes everything they have. Not just, forgetting it. No, it's something that God gave him. He said, I'm not just going to forget it. I'm going to go back and get it. When he went back and he was alone, that's when the angel, the representing angel of Esav, which is obviously not a positive thing, to say the least, had his moments alone with Yaakov. And they battled. Some like to look at it as a physical battle. Everyone likes to look at it as a spiritual battle. Whether it was physical and spiritual, or only spiritual, but it was definitely a spiritual battle whenever we're talking about a battle with an angel, obviously. And all night long, they're going back and forth and back and forth. At moments, Yaakov was overcoming. At other moments, the angel was overcoming. But there was never an acclaimed winner until the morning, until dawn, to which the angel of Esav strikes Yaakov on his thigh. By the way, by no chance, the thigh is a place which is associated with the reproductive system. It's right there. It's right parallel to the Brit. Because the angel knew that he really could not beat Yaakov. But I'm going to beat his descendants. I'm going to beat his offspring. So he gave him a low blow. From that point on, Yaakov even started limping. That's one of the reasons why we don't eat from the sciatic nerve of a cow. Because that's the point where Yaakov was damaged by the angel. So 1 second. Who's greater? The angel or Yaakov? Well, the angel won. But the Talmud tells us that tzaddikim are greater than angels. Why? Because an angel can only study, can only learn. A righteous person learns and does and fulfills. An angel cannot. An angel does not have an evil inclination pushing them to do something wrong. They're just programmed to do something and they do it. But it's really all in the learning, in the study sense of the way, not doing and fulfilling. There's no choice that a righteous person or any human being has the choice to do. So why did the angel win? That's not fair. The tzaddik should have. And furthermore, what took so long for the angel to vanquish Yaakov? Why couldn't he have hit him in the thigh earlier in the evening? Why did it have to drag out all night? Listen to what the Zera Shimshon brings as an answer. He quotes a Tosafot, a commentary on the Talmud in Masechet Sanhedrin, that says there was a tradition in Israel that once upon a time, the Kedusha that we say during the repetition of the Amidah, the Nakdishach v'Na'aritzach, that we say Shacharit and Mincha, was only said on Shabbat, not during the week. The reason for that is because only on Shabbat can human beings say Shirah, say song and praise to God. During the week, not so, because during the week there's a lot of Yetzer Hara, and we are not on a spiritual level to even be granted the access and the opportunity to sing to God. On Shabbat, yes. Now, even though this is not halachically how we hold, but this was a followed tradition for a certain time in the land of Israel. based on this, the Zera Shimshon answers, at what point did the angel tell Yaakov, I gotta go, and then he knocked him before he left? By dawn. Because at dawn is the only time of the day that it's the angel's turn to sing shira, to sing song and praise to God. And that was in the merit of the opportunity that the angel had to do that for God. That's how he was able to beat Yaakov. Because a tzaddik overrides an angel. But an angel at the moment that he's able to sing shira overrides a tzaddik who's not able to sing shira. The Zera Shimshon says that till that day, till age 97, Yaakov never observed Shabbat, just like Avraham and just like Yitzchak. But at that day, when he realized the power of song, the power of praise and song to God that the angel used to vanquish him, he said, since I'm able to understand that concept, since I'm privy to it now, I need to gain access to it. How can Jacob gain access to praising God? Only through fulfilling Shabbat. And he felt that since he now knew this secret, knew the secret tool of Shirah, that he was able to now promote himself. Look at this. To promote himself from a Ben Noach, from a Noachide, to a Yehudi, to a Jew, to an Israel. As Jews, yes, we're called Yehudim, but we're called Bnei Israel. It also happens to be that it was at that moment when he figured out why he got beat and why the angel left, that he was also named by the angel Israel. It was at that moment that Yaakov became a Jew who was able to fulfill Shabbat. Once he was able to fulfill and observe the Shabbat, he was now able to sing praise to God. So going back, Avraham and Yitzchak did not keep Shabbat. Yaakov did observe the Shabbat. Avraham and Yitzchak only honored the Shabbat. The Zera Shimshon says it makes good, perfect sense. This verse says, Vayichan et penei ha'ir. We never see that Yaakov set up encampment, set up his Tchum Shabbat, his perimeters of where they're allowed to wander on Shabbat. This should have been done or spoken about earlier. No. The Zera Shimshon says this was the first Shabbat Yaakov is observing after he had his back and forth with the angel. Even though he may have been defeated on one aspect, but he gained a new aspect of being able to consider himself a Jew who's allowed to keep Shabbat. For what purpose? In order to sing song and praise to God. I think the lesson is so open and revealed to all of us. We need to capitalize on our singing and praises that we deliver to God on Shabbat. It's something Yaakov was so enthusiastic to be granted access to. It's up to us to sit around our tables with our children, with our guests, and sing the beautiful Shabbat songs and praises. It's something which changes the atmosphere in the home and with the children. A question was once asked. I'll mention one of the rabbis I'm saying, but the one who it's not to his benefit I won't. But two of the greatest Torah giants of our previous generation. One which all of his children, boys and girls alike, and grandchildren, are following in the ways of Torah and mitzvot. How many children? Chaim Yosef has... Kama ילדים? Ken, he has, 7 kids? 7 or 8. 7 or 8 children. All of the boys, either Roshei Shivot, Roshei Kollels, or something to do with promoting Torah. His daughters all married also big rabbis. The other rabbi, I'm not going to mention his name, had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. The boy, now we have to understand, to us, if our own child would become a doctor professor, we'd be very happy. But if you understand a Torah giant and leader if they have 2 children, one of them becomes a professor, the boy, and the girl marries a Rosh Hashiva. That's like a 50% on a test when you are a Torah giant and leader. And when approached and asked, how could this be? How could one get 8 out of 8 and one get 1 out of 2? What's the difference? And when asked on both sides, Chaim Ovadia Yosef said, what I do on Shabbat is I close my book, I close my Talmud, I close my Chumash, and I open in song, and I open in praise, and I open in conversation with my children. We sing the Shabbat songs. And that's what made them stay committed to Torah and mitzvot all week long. And the other rabbi, to who we will not mention name, when asked, what did you do on your Shabbat table? He said, I would turn to the side on a stender and open my Gemara and learn at the meal. I'm not saying, and who are any of us to judge which one is better for who? All I could say, and all that is being said and seen, is we are not the type of people to start opening books at our table and to start preaching. We are the type to engage in conversation, inspire, say a story maybe, short Dvar Torah, but not to blow off the family for own personal learning or gain. Rather, we need to take the advice of Chaim Ovadia Yosef and sing with our children. And this week, more than ever, the week we read about Yaakov fulfilling his first Shabbat with the inspiration that he started fulfilling Shabbat in order that he could sing praise to God. What a greater week for us to sit around our table, our guests, and sing praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Take the Shabbat Birkon, take the bencher, take the Sidur. There's so many beautiful songs that we could sing on Shabbat, we could sing not on Shabbat. Something beautiful we started doing for a couple weeks now in the synagogue is weekly we teach the children the Sephardic songs and melodies. And they go home singing it. And while they're in the shower, they're singing it, whether they're supposed to or not, it doesn't matter. It's a good thing. When they're changing, when they're walking to school, when they're on the bus, these tunes are the one that's going through their minds. So when they come on Shabbat, this is what they're going to do. They're going to be involved. They're going to want to sing. And our song to God is so cherished by Him, to the point where the song of human beings, of Jews, is more cherished to God than even the songs of the angels and the praises of the angels. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us to always capitalize on those moments with our children and our grandchildren, especially around the Shabbat table, especially around the table of Yom Tov, the holiday table, and sing our praise and love to God. Tonight, starting tomorrow, is Thanksgiving. Now, is it on purpose, not on purpose? Is it a religious holiday, not a religious holiday? My view is, if it's a day, another day to thank God, why not? Yes, turkey, no turkey. Now's not the forum. Are we allowed to? We're not allowed to. But look at the chances of when we're going to study the Torah portion. We're studying the Torah portion where Yaakov did anything in order to be able to sing praise to God. Even upgrading himself from a Noahide to a Jew in order to sing songs sing song and praise to God through fulfilling Shabbat. Something to think about this Thanksgiving, something to think about when we sing our song to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.